Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bad Guys. I think this is officially episode three, four.
Or
Episode four. Okay, hopefully I put the right one on the flyer. But welcome back. I'm Jeff Goss. There's Jeff Rexrock, and we got a guest Leonard Muise, the legendary Hall of Famer Leonard Muise. Jeff, why don't you introduce him?
hello, everybody. I would like to introduce NorCal Hall of Famer Barry a Goat, Leonard Muse. If you're looking for discs, make sure you check out Empire Smoke Shop or the bi-monthly that happens to be this upcoming weekend. Leonard, how you doing?
I'm doing really good. How are you guys?
Doing good. I heard we were just talking that you had sadly had COVID, the strain that's kind of wreaking havoc in the Bay.
Yeah, I work downtown San Francisco half time. We have, split time between home and there, and like a third of us in a relatively small office all got it. So it was pretty clear where it originated. But I was fortunate that it wasn't too severe for me. I think the downside is I brought it home to my wife and my daughter, but they also managed to get through without too much grief. They caught up. They got it after me. My wife got it after me. Then my daughter got it after her, and then we all hit the finish line the same time. This past weekend was the first time we all tested clear.
Oh, man.
After I was feeling okay for a week, but I was still testing positive. So
Yeah, it's
you know,
still out there, folks. Like if you haven't had it
yeah,
yet, or you had it early on, or you haven't been keeping up on your boosters, make sure you do
yeah,
because it's yeah. Matt Rowe, a friend of mine, had it for like a
yeah,
month and it still feels
yeah.
funky. So
I know. It's one of those dumb things where I mean, I hadn't had it coming out the other side of it. I'm freaking feeling great. I feel lucky. I feel fantastic. There's nothing like being sick to make you be joyous about feeling even decent. And so right now I'm definitely feeling that. Today was my first day back in the office. It was just, yeah. So it's kind of really dumb, but it certainly is way more prevalent than any time I've seen it among the community I go in.
well,
Yeah, and on my frisbee note, we I coached a ultimate tournament this past
Mm,
weekend,
mm,
and one person got it. They didn't know they had it. The team went to dinner
mm.
after the Saturday of the tournament, and then like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, people just started getting checked off.
Oh God.
So then we had a
Yeah.
bunch of people. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Enough of the COVID talk.
Well, that was great.
Let's get it. Let's get
That was
into
great.
let's talk about more fun
That
things.
was frisbee talk. That was
Yeah.
frisbee talk.
Okay,
Yeah, man.
let's
Real
start with
life.
the easy stuff. Leonard, you got
Yeah.
anything fun planned for the bi-monthly? Are you going to switch anything up, or is it what we've been playing the last couple weeks? If you've been
Well,
out
I
there.
mean, yeah, see, I've set a precedent that I usually show up Friday afternoon and people are trying, some people don't know about the bi-monthly, but others are hoping to get a little practice in. And I'm like moving baskets right after they play them. They think they're warming up for the next day. And I'm not gonna say anything because I like that. I
Oh.
like that precedent. So, one of these times, if I just happen not to change much, I want people to be caught off guard by not changing things. So we'll see what happens. But
We're not just gonna have you recurring every week, the week before, every time, giving us the update about whether or not we should expect change. So this is how
I've
much
always
I,
changed it. I
yeah,
don't think I've ever not changed at least half a dozen holes the day before.
I
I'll
will
always
cop,
change a bunch.
I will
Yeah.
cop to looking at U disc on Saturday morning, like as I wake up, being like, okay, what did he do? And like
Yeah.
looking through U disc.
Yeah. Because it's the last thing I do before I go to bed Friday
Yeah. Oh
night
yeah, I've caught
for
you at
sure.
like 12 midnight or something like that. But that okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, come on down. I'm gonna. I didn't think I was gonna be able to make it, but I'm gonna be out there around
Yeah.
11. Should be a beautiful weekend. So
It is actually forecast is for high 70s. So, we play in the morning, so might make 72, 73 by the time we wrap up. Yeah, and for the folks who don't know Monarch, it's a cool space, and but it's a busy golf course, so it's not a lot of fun when you're playing with the stick golfers. And so those times that I'm finally got my back together to do the bi-monthly, and it's we have the run of the place. It's really great. It's a much better experience than trying to get out there on your own and, hanging out with 80 to 100 other disc golfers on a Saturday morning.
it's always a
It's
vibe.
it's a cool scene. Yep.
Um, Yeah. So you're just coming off of the OTB Open, a month or so ago.
I know
I
it
guess,
seems like a long time
but
ago.
it really
My
was.
goodness.
Yeah, it was like May, right? Mid May.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so only a month and a half. Yeah. So the big news, obviously, is that we're going to be hosting a major in California next year at
Yeah.
Swenson.
Yeah.
So, do you know any of the logistics? Have they started talking about times? Is there what kind of prep can you do now? We're both project managers, so I'm like, well,
Right.
if you know what you're doing, do you know what you're doing yet?
Y- Um, the dates have been set, and I don't recall what they are, but it's a week or 2 weeks earlier, so it's a little earlier. And
Hmm.
and Sean Mercy is, we're all happy about that from a weather forecast point of view because we have had some substantial heat in mid to late May in the past, so it increases the odds we'll have the same great weather we had this year. He's a little concerned just because we do a month and a half, 2 months of intense volunteer prep, and now there's a greater chance those weekends will get rained out, but he's just the most ridiculously amazing operations guy. And so, of course, that's what his primary concern is right now. I mean, for me, it's going to be about the design, and if I hadn't already gotten a lot of very fortunate attention as a designer because of OTB, I think if I had to guess, 70% of the people who would recognize my name in the sport know me that way, right? Bay Area folks know me for any number of things, but outside the Bay Area, California, especially if you're not old school, folks know me as the OTB designer, and so I'm going to be front and center for this because they did establish a precedence of wooded courses, which I think I dig that vibe. I like the idea of kind of having flavors. USDGC is not going to change. European Open is probably going to have a fairly consistent sort of track over time, right? And so you know, folks are a little disappointed. Just to be generous about it that that it's not going to be a wooded course. Oh no, another golf course. And so it'd be interesting to see if I can come up with stuff. Um, the, there's two things that are true about that from my personal perspective about designing. First of all, I know it's Champions Cup, and so I will make it a little tougher. That kind of goes without saying, but um, I like technical golf too, and so I try to make that course as technical as I can, given that it's a golf course.
Yeah.
And so folks will say, "Oh, good, you'll just make it more technical because of the wooded history." Well, I've already, if I could find more, I would have. So that's true. I would have already done that. And then the other thing that's true, and OTB has, it makes me mad, and also it's amazingly good in some ways, has shown me this. I seem to be a better designer when people tell me the things they want or problems they see. It seems, I mean, I'm out there grinding so hard to find the best possible layout. And then somebody says, there's too much of this or not enough of that. And somehow that just stimulates a part of my brain that I just can't release until I get that negative feedback. And so the same thing's true with Champions Cup. My first thought was, dang, I mean, I'm already making it as technical as I can. And although I don't know yet, we're going to have 4 rounds, and we'll probably have an A layout and a B layout, but I don't know what that means yet. It can't be completely separate tracks because we're not going to install a bunch of new tees and
Yeah, yeah,
crisscross and all
yeah.
that. And I also don't want it to be just the exact same tees with a different basket sometimes. But now my brain is finding shots and thinking of course flows that I'm like, how did I not think of that before?
Wow. So do you think there are going to be some
And so I'm
substantial
already
changes there?
stimulated. I don't know what so project management stuff. I haven't been given the parameters of this. I don't know budget or just the general framework of um, 5 more new teas. We're going to do ABBA, some sort of general sense of what they want in terms of
Yeah.
you know um, and so once I have that, it'll help me to sort out some of the
Well,
brainstorming
that's
that I'm
you
doing.
kind of answered all my questions. I was going to be like, well, hey, are there going to be multiple layouts? Is it 4 days? All that stuff. Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah. So there
obviously,
will be multiple layouts, and it will be 4 days, and beyond that, I know what I'm kind of imagining so far, but again, I don't want to assume too much. My
oh yeah,
basic thought is let's say that I have 9 holes of the 18 that are different in the two layouts, right? I don't want to do the standard layout as A, and then all the changes in the other layout. I'll want to mix them so the A, half the changes will be in layout A and half the changes in
Yeah,
layout
yeah, that
B.
makes sense.
And potentially something thematic. I don't know if one will be the bomber layout, one will be the more technical. I have no idea in that regard. But that's the only thought I really have is I don't want to just do regular layout versus other layout. I do want to have it a little bit more dynamic. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But it's funny. I love it and hate it, man, because my brain is finding thought ideas already I didn't know I had. And it's only because it's a major and there's a lot of people who are mad that it's on a golf course.
Yeah,
And those things are definitely inspiring me.
I feel like we've had some pretty fun, exciting tournaments with the OTB Open. So there's
Oh, it's
there's
been
definitely
so
some
good.
great score separation already, and there's some great technical challenges to it and length to it. So I'm sure you given a year to muse on, haha, no pun intended.
Nice.
To think about it, working with the Shans and all those
Yeah.
guys, it's gonna be really really fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think the reality is they'll probably give me a green light to get out there and start thinking of ideas in about 2 months.
Mhm.
And then sometime I'll have about 4 months to work on it because sometime around January, February, for the most part, we'll have to lock it down and
Yeah.
just start figuring out the operational part of it. Because normally we have more time than that, and the changes aren't as extensive. But I mean, more time to get to a final design than that. I can still be tinkering with a couple months to go, but I don't think have that much runway on this occasion. So I'm looking forward to it because honestly, I can't turn it off.
Yeah.
And I have a bunch of other course stuff in my head and disc golf stuff and it's just like buzzing around in the back of my head constantly, this Champions Cup thing. And if I could drop everything and go design it tomorrow, I just would because
It would get it out of your head, right?
I'd love to not have it buzzing around in there. Yeah.
It's gonna run
I'd
into
love to be able to just
Shasta,
work
and
on
it's
it.
gonna run into
Yeah.
I know this is probably a question more for the Shans, but do you know if there's going to be any auxiliary events around that are similar to the offerings you guys had at the OTB Open before, like the AMS version and all that stuff?
Oh yeah, there'll be a AM weekend preceding.
Okay,
I'm pretty
cool.
sure that's happening. And then when you first said that, I don't know if this is what you were also thinking, but given the time and the prominence of the event, I bet you there's other stuff too. There'd probably be more community events. There'd probably be more tie-ins of all kinds of who knows whether it's sponsorship or community engagement or who knows what more local news media.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of I think all of that. One of the things, I mean, when I look at OTB, I think there's a ceiling on how good the course can be, and I think I think we get better every year. But I think B plus is about the when you're grading on a tour quality scale, I think B plus is the most you can hope for a track. It's just the terrain. I'm a good designer, but nobody's the best designer of. I'm not 20 good designers in one.
You can't go out there and plant 100 trees.
Yeah, and so there's a limit to how good the layout can be, but in my opinion, the main success of the event or the strength of the event and probably quite consciously why it's coming to Stockton is because they run such an amazingly good operation there. Holy crap, they run that tournament well.
Mm-hmm.
And the experience up and down the board, players love the execution, fans love the execution, the relationship with the golf course is amazing. I mean, I'll give you a little minor detail of how good the relationship with the golf course. Some of it is because the Shans are great, and some of it is just like sometimes great shit just happens, right? And so the golf course didn't have to love us as much as they do, and that's obviously been nurtured. But this year, they were the ones who suggested that they mow on some of the holes that we're throwing across their fairways, that they let their grass on their fairways grow so that they could mow straight ahead on our fairways, so it looked like we were playing our fairways.
Oh yeah.
Not crossing theirs. That was their suggestion. I never even thought of that. I mean, I've played golf from forever, and even as a designer, I'm thinking about ground play. It's like, okay, this is the high grass, but short grass because I'm just taking for granted that that's a given. They're the ones thinking, you guys want us to mow it so it looks like you're playing your own fairways. I'm like, what?
That's
And
their
so I
mindset.
think
They're like, hey,
little things like that with Champions Cup will probably be, and that's the thing. I'm tweaking the design every year, and I look at how well Sean Mercy and Sean Jack run their part of it. Their innovation and improvements, man, they are hungrier than I am. I've never worked with folks as hungry as I am in terms of wanting to do better every time. They just keep finding more and better stuff. They just execute the hell out of that. And so I'm incredibly impressed with it. And so I'm looking forward to what they come up with, whatever it is for fan or player experience.
oh yeah.
I'm sure it's going to be crazy good.
Yeah, if people remember, like Paige got a bunch of grief because she said because they had it was the first year of OTB being at that site, and then
Mm,
immediately following that was the women's USWDGC
right,
in
right.
the local area, and it was and she had not made a complaint, but just kind of said that, like, look, the tournament I was just at was just a million times better than this one, and it set such a high standard that I can't believe I'm at this major, and it's not even close to being that standard. And I caddied for my partner Kaylin, who played at USWDGC that year, and I agree. Like and I'm an OTB lover. Like I'm an OTB simp. I go every year. I spend a lot of money,
Yeah.
and it's right. They throw a great party. That's what I call that tournament. It is a super fun party that has great golf. The course. One of the things I think that's super cool about that course is that weirdly, video just does not do justice how hard that course is,
Yeah.
and it's incredible how good those players are. Um,
Yeah, right.
that first year when you had the par five that went along the right side of that like rivery, creaky
Yeah,
bog,
there's a slough out
uh,
there. Yep.
and only a few people were still ripping in three shots. We're getting in eagle territories,
Yeah.
and just standing next to them and listening to the disc rip and seeing the lines that they were hitting, it was absolutely
Yeah.
crazy. I'm looking at like there's no way that like par at best on this hole, and people were absolutely getting eagle chances on it. It was crazy. It was incredible. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
This year you had on a few holes you had pin movement based off of the round. I think it was like
Just
round
one.
one. Okay, one.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that something that you put like there was a lot of feedback through podcasts that I listened to saying they really liked that, and that Brody Smith has been talking about this forever, that they do it in golf by moving,
Sure.
like
The
moving
flag
day
stick.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, moving day is technically named that because the pin, it's the hole itself, moves somewhere else on the green.
Hmm. I didn't know. They move the flag stick every day at PGA tournaments.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I thought moving day was just sort of
Either way.
it's like the third lap of a mile run on the track. It's just when you sort of position yourself for the final lap. But that was only done because we had found out about a month before the event that Champions Cup was going to come there, and Sean Jack asked me to, can you design a couple of Champions Cup holes real quick? It's like we'd already shipped the caddy book, and so honestly, I designed that at home via satellite because I knew there was space back there, and I'm like, well, I can stretch this one out, and so he just wanted to. I think he wanted to show the world that, look, it's not a static track. It's not a one-dimensional track that if that you could actually come up with interesting other shots, and this place would be entertaining for two distinct layouts. And so I think he just wanted, in the end, he just went with the one hole. Um, and so yeah, we did that on Saturday only. We stretched it out to a par five, and it it was. I won't get into the data on that because I crunch the data, and some people think that that's sort of how I stand out in terms of being a designer. I think how I stand out as being a designer is I'm desperate to have 20 different ways to think of it, and crunching scoring data is just one of them. But the scoring data there on the new holes didn't tell me what I thought I was going to learn from it, but it also maybe told me the players hadn't had a chance to work on that hole that much because they didn't quite score as well as I thought they would. But anyway, that's what that was about. Why we did it this year was just a way to kind of preview the fact that we knew championship was
That's so cool.
coming.
That's so cool that you guys were
Well,
sneaking that in a little bit because of that.
Yeah.
And did you get any feedback from the players about that hole and the fact that the pin moved?
Yeah, I was surprised because I heard more positive feedback from the guys. I didn't hear much from the women, and I didn't like it that much for the guys. And so let me geek for a moment on design here, right? So number 9, kudos to the golf course for letting us especially put the men's tee right next to their golf green, which is still insane that they let us do that. It's literally 10 feet off their putting surface on a par 3. It's like, how did they ever give us permission for that? But glad they did, because what would have been a B+ hole is now an A+ hole. And a lot of pros say it's probably consensus best hole on the course, just from a pure golf perspective, maybe not from wickedness perspective, but just pure risk reward. So anyway, it's a long dog leg, right? And you've got to carry the corner, and the more you bite off, the better position you are. Getting to the green in 2, the women's tee is 125 feet further up, 150 feet, is equivalent difficulty, right? But the difference in the ability of the men versus the women to convert the putt is an important distinction here. So the percentages of men and women getting to C1 and C2 is not that different, but the scoring's a lot different because a lot of women are deep C1 and they're still just getting pars. And so my intent with that layout, by adding 200 feet to the women's hole, was to say, those of you who see the women taking the risk of going across in 2 and still getting par, and they're thinking to yourself, screw it, why am I taking that risk? It's hard for me to get across. I can play it safe and get a par. My intent was, if you get across in 2, now you've got a wide open 200-foot approach shot that you're definitely going to get close C1. You're not going to have a 38-foot putt. You're going to have a 23-foot putt, and getting across in 2 would make a much bigger difference for women's scores than the current hole. So even though aesthetically it's not nearly as nice, I thought strategically it would encourage more women. I just got to get it crossing 2, because if you don't, they've got 380 from the edge of the water to try to get, if they lay up short in 2 and then they try to somehow miraculously still pull off the birdie. So that's what I hoped would happen, and then the scoring average was almost exactly what it was in the other rounds.
Oh wow!
Like, come on, that's got to be a third of a stroke easier. And so, but they played it once, and most of the women in the tournament have played that whole, 3 tournaments by now, 10 times to 1 time, and maybe they just didn't
even adjust. They're just like, yet. We'll just play it the same way.
And for the men, it's just, I added 320 feet to and some reasonable gaps, but it's a little anticlimactic. The shot over the water is such an ideal. If you do the risk reward and you give yourself a 270-foot shot with a perfect drive, you're probably going to cash that. And if you lay back and you're 370, you can still execute it. Or you can do what Proctor did, which I design sometimes for dream scenarios, and it's like the chance of them happening are so slim, but then I hear that they do. So Proctor threw OB in the waist area, and I created a drop zone this year that was like 460 to the pin, and just a perfect power turnover, slow, and he apparently parked it from the drop zone.
Oh wow!
It was 4, which is just wicked. I mean, honestly, I don't even know if you go for that. It's a 400-foot carry into a headwind, but it's there if you want to. Proctor go ahead, puts it in C1 and cashes the putt. So that hole has got all kinds of cool shit going on. So anyway, that was. It's going back to Monarch Bay, just the tinkering. It's like always like, oh, what if I do this? How will it score?
Mm-hmm.
What will happen? And that's and it's incredibly thrilling to be able to imagine a hole and then see people play it. And obviously with the pros, the chance of them playing it the way you imagine it is so high because they're so good. And so it's yeah, it's it's really cool.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
we've already had you here for 25 minutes. I want to make sure we chat a little bit
Oh my
about.
God. Yeah, that's right. I'm just like,
No, it's
I
okay.
go on
Hey,
forever.
man,
I'm terrible.
hey, man, people can sit that back and listen to you talk all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's just
Yeah.
because I also have a game that I want us all to play. So let's just quickly
Okay.
touch about because I was involved in this as well. So I want to make sure that we chat about it. But let's talk a little
Yes,
bit
sir.
about Southgate Park and Hayward. Do
Yeah.
you want to just give the sort of vitals and kind of where we're at with the
Yeah. Well,
project?
first of all, hat tip to Scott Riley, because Scott um, has had a relationship with the Hayward area recreation district for several years, and their people have come and gone, but he's managed to stay engaged, or the new folks found him and connected with him, and they found me too. And at some point Scott and I were like, oh, they're talking to you too. And we got together to work on it. And then he had done a draft design, and then I did a design. We ended up going with my design, but he's a big part of why that happened. He helped bring them along, and when they and to give them confidence and expertise when they were thinking about, yeah, we're pretty sure we want to do disc golf, but we've never done it before. And they were wading into that water to find out what it was like. And so, and then he showed up, in the build phase, and did a lot of great work during the build too, especially the day I couldn't be there to do the concrete pads. So, thanks, Scott. That was an amazing contribution there. So yeah, it's a beginner course. And the weird thing about beginner courses is that, um, I think the sport as a whole, it's true. But I think most of the disc golf is regionalized. And so what we understand to be true about the sport is kind of just what we know in our area. And it could be completely different in Colorado for all we know, in terms of what a good course looks like, how tournaments are run, all kinds of things, right? So the definition of beginner course, entry level course, I used to think Walden Park was, it's flat, it's simple, it's relatively short, you can't lose a disc, it's straightforward, the signage is fine, but the holes, if you throw 120 feet, you're going to throw that same disc 20 something times on a 9-hole course. It's kind of like, it will get tedious. And I had that experience with my daughter, and so I don't. When she was 7, she went there and got bored after 3 holes. She wasn't that into it anyway, but she was still, and she could throw about 100 feet, but she just got bored after a few holes. And then there's a little course in Concord around a swimming pool, if you guys don't know Geringer, and the holes there were 100 feet. And so she goes there, and she actually birdied one, and she lost her mind. She was like hugging total strangers, and then and it's a little 4-hole loop, and then I couldn't get her off of it. So she was done in literally 25 minutes. She was done at Walden, but she played for like an hour and 25 minutes at Geringer, because just like it spoke to her, and she could get a score, and she was just in loop after loop. And it was just, so I had to witness that. And I even wrote some dumb article about designing short disc golf courses for the PDJ mag, when I had never really done what I considered a true beginner course. And so now we have one. And I mean, I wish it was a little more technical. I wish there were more trees in the way. You could teach people some baby shapes and stuff. But 150-foot holes right there for you, very nicely installed with quality tees and signage and baskets. Um, and I think, as I said at the event, if you're imagining trying to build anything, any enterprise, any concept, and you're trying to figure out how do you build it to be healthy throughout all the levels of experience, intermediate players, pro tour, whatever it is, that foundation has to be there.
Yeah.
And the foundation, and at least at this point in our sport, the foundation is going to be players. Maybe later, if Sean Jack has his way, disc golf becomes an event that you don't even have to ever have played, that you want to be part of. But our sport's not there yet. So the blood of the sport is going to come, all the fuel of the sport is going to come from people who play the game. And if we want to continue to nurture the game, you've got to bring more entry folks. So you should have 4 maybe beginner courses for every 2 or 3 intermediate for every one
Really good, yeah.
extremely challenging course, right? Something like that.
I
So
never.
I'm hoping we I'm hoping to find out if that concept, it makes sense now.
Yeah.
I've been doing this how long, and finally I've done one.
Well, and now we're starting to see interest from the cities and from other places, right? Where we would
Oh,
have
hell yeah.
we for the last 15 years we've had to fight for the courses that we had, and if you're going to go through all that rigmarole, you're going to put in a course that you're going to play, not a course for beginners, right? So
I think that's true, but I'll admit myself, being myopic in that regard. It's like, again, what I thought was an entry level course wasn't. What I thought was
well,
a good golf
that was
course
a really
wasn't.
interesting point because I'd never
And
really thought about that. Where
eh,
if you had to throw 3 shots just to get to putt, like that's going to
yeah,
get really
and
boring
the
after a
same
while.
disc 3 times,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's just like
Mhm.
and it's just straight for you because you're only throwing 100 feet. The trees 20 feet apart really aren't feeling like much of a corridor. You're just
Yeah.
like, yeah. But the other thing is, I haven't done this for a long time, and I'm mad at myself. One day I take a week off from work and go do this. I used to cruise around the Bay Area and just kind of always have my eyes open like anybody else for parks. But sometimes I'd pick out green spots on the map and go see what they were. And if they didn't have like beautiful spacing of trees and these, and it's like, oh, 30 acres, it's like, whatever. That was, 10, 15 years ago. I'm like, I'm looking for this perfect terrain. I wasn't looking for what, and now, like you said, now the park districts of their own initiative are saying, can we please do disc golf? It's no longer we have to sell it
Hmm.
to them
Well,
more and more.
and like you were saying
They're
before,
coming to us and
yeah.
saying, we want it. Can you show us how to do it?
And like you were saying before with OTB and the design there, where sometimes you work best in the constraints that you're given, or the complaints or the changes that people are wanting to see.
Yeah.
With hard
Oh,
saying
yeah.
this park or this park, and with
Hell yeah.
Oakland, which we're also trying to work on to start getting some
Yeah.
courses started in Oakland, beginner courses like this one. You'll go and they'll be like, "How about this?" And then you can go and just, well, what can we put here? What can we fit?
Oh,
All that stuff,
absolutely. I
right?
was going to say the exact same thing is I kind of, when I was stuck in my own narrow sense and I had no idea how narrow it was of what a disc golf course should be. And then they come to us now and they say, we want to do disc golf. How about that space over there? And Oyster Bay is the easiest example. We said landfill, yes, please,
Yeah,
because you're
whole
the East
cloth.
Bay Regional Park District and you've got all this other land, and any course is a good course, but especially if it opens the door with you guys. And then we took Oyster Bay and made it into something worthwhile. So, this whole idea of what is a viable disc golf course space, my 10 years ago, I would have told you there was maybe 20 possible places to put disc golf in the greater Bay Area. There was hardly any, and our chances of getting more than one or two were slim. Now I would tell you there's probably a couple hundred
Yeah.
Mhm.
because all they got to do is point at a space, and there's a pretty good chance I can make it into something reasonably good, kind of fun for the folks, and functional and safe and worth doing. And so I had to grow through that myself
Yeah.
too.
So the Southgate Park, which
Hmm.
I believe we call it Southgate Park Disc Golf Course on UDisc. If you want to look
Yeah,
for
we
it,
do. Yep,
it's
yep.
all you should be able to find it. It's playable. It's out there,
Yeah,
and we're eventually going to do a grand opening with Hard, but I don't think we put anything on the books
there's
yet.
no date yet. Yeah, I
But
think they've done a lot of improvements to that park, and
do a big
again,
thing. Yeah.
it's so nice that they're driving it and we don't have to sell them on it. But in this case, we were the beneficiary of all the other improvements they've made at that park. And when we come along with saying, hey, we're out there doing work and meeting the neighbors, hey, we're doing disc golf, the neighbors were like, this is just another enhancement to the park.
Hmm.
So rather than this, sometimes we encounter people like, what are you doing to our park?
Hmm.
You know,
Mhm.
there's this momentum that Hard gets credit for, and
No.
people kind of excited about all the cool things happen, not just us. Yeah.
Um, you're breaking up just a little bit there, but so we'll have a grand opening for that soon, and then also look
Yep.
for hopefully before long we'll start working on some Oakland courses in the same sort of auspice of smaller beginner courses and working with the city.
Yeah. I real quick on that.
Yeah.
I'll just say yes. I'm hoping that's going to happen, but the real world of bureaucracy and politics has me nervous about that
Oh
right
yes,
now.
of course.
And worst thing in the world ever is going out on a limb and trying to hype people up. Hey, everybody, there's this cool thing. Oh, come with me. We're gonna do this cool thing. And then it's like, oh, sorry. Oh God, that kills me every time. And so I hope Oakland doesn't turn out to be one of those. But right now it's in a gray area. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which way it's gonna go, and I'm really sick about it.
Um, well, while I have you, Jeff, was there anything else you wanted to ask Leonard about,
Well, not
or
really, but
jump
I
in
just
there?
wanted to mention. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I find an appreciation for having beginner courses because I just played with a friend that is an ultimate frisbee player, but plays disc golf like an ultimate frisbee player. So I put a paradox in her hands, and so it's the perfect disc that is flippy,
Mm,
kind of like an ultimate lid. And we played Golden Gate Park. That's her home course,
yeah.
and so she plays like 2 or 3 times a year. But it's tough because it's heavily wooded, and like before that, she was throwing a max weight champion plastic leopard as her go-to disc, and that just
Yeah.
wasn't enough for the arm speed that she had.
Yeah.
And so I described the Hayward course to her, and just the light that came into her eyes, she was like, "Whoa, I want to play this place." Like she was ready to drop what we were doing at Golden Gate Park right there, get in the car and drive to Hayward, even though she lives in San Francisco,
Hey,
just to go play that.
Hayward's not that far away. I've driven there plenty of times in the last couple of months.
It's the boonies if you live in the city.
Yeah, it only takes 45 minutes from where I live. It's not that bad. Everything takes 45 minutes from where I live though. So,
Right.
well, yeah. So, hopefully more to come then. Yeah, obviously,
Yep.
I'm not really the rah like kind of let's get everybody, but reach out to the East Bay Disc Golf Course if you're club if you're interested in more information there. And then the other thing that I will say is that hopefully once we start getting through the grand opening of the Southgate Park course, we're definitely going to start trying to do some beginner um, clinics down there and stuff like that. So if you
Yeah,
want to be involved in
for
that,
sure.
please let me know. So here, I've got a game for you because I think we'll play a game, maybe talk a little bit else about pro golf, but we've already gone
Okay.
a while here. But
Okay.
I want you guys to play a game against each other. So it's called
Okay.
Guess the Pro. So hopefully
Oh
you guys
no.
can do this. I know. I
Oh
realize
no.
I'm like I don't know if Leonard or Jeff like actually follow pros that much, but we'll see. So I'm gonna give you, and so this is kind of like you guys both get a guess every time. I'm gonna give you a
Okay.
clue, and the clues get more and more obvious. Though I'm not sure I actually made this obvious enough. So play along at home if you're listening.
Yeah.
If you guess who this is before
Yeah.
they guess, then you're smarter than
sure.
Leonard Muise about pro golfers. Okay, so this is the first
Low
clue.
bar.
This is this is a current pro, of this generation that's playing currently.
Okay.
Okay. Right now, currently, he's just outside the top 10 in the PDGA World Rankings, but he's fourth in Statmando official rankings, and all of Statmando's rankings. So, for some reason, the PDGA has him very lowly ranked or lower ranked, but Statmando has him pretty highly ranked. This is like also on like their power rankings and stuff too.
Kyle Klein.
Oh, that's a good guess actually.
I was gonna guess AB.
Got it in one. Damn it.
Really? Well,
Yeah,
AB,
the
I
only
know
reason-
AB is kind of has after coming out of the blocks so hot. He's had some just mediocre events, but
Yeah.
he really dropped that far.
Well, yeah. I mean, so I think the PDJ World Rankings are a little suspect because Paul McBeth's still pretty far up there. So
Right.
there's definitely like
I
it's
see.
because I think it's something like the last 100. No, it says it's like the last 104 weeks on the PDJ, but it's
So this is
clearly more.
how ignorant I am. So this is not just rating.
No, it's
When
not
you
just
say
full
world
on
rankings,
rating.
so they
Oh, actually,
they've
and I'm
so
wrong.
they've gone away from ratings as the basis of how good
Yeah.
players are and
So
come
there's-
up with their own computation. Okay.
There is a
I didn't even know
official
they were
disc
doing
golf
that.
world ranking. Yeah, they had something dumb for a while, and then it came back
Okay.
recently. Anyways, it was mostly just for me to point that out. Here, let me just quickly tell you the
Okay.
other facts because I think these are all great facts. He has 9 top 10 finishes this year. He has 3 wins already, but like you were saying, he came out of the gate hot.
Yeah.
He won 20 grand in back-to-back events. That's crazy. 10 grand, and that was Texas State's in Jonesboro.
Yeah.
And then obviously he won the first DGPT event of the year, which Jeff and I were very interested in because we got to talk to Jeff Corns about it,
Nice.
the chess.com invitational. So anyways,
Yeah.
that's Anthony Barella. Maybe we'll try something else. I mean, I thought it was going to be too hard, but
Yeah, 20 grand in 2 weeks. You could almost make a living doing that.
he has...
And I'm serious that way because
Yeah.
the pros don't make a living off of purses. I think
Oh, no.
it's
Right.
great that they're making more money now, but I think everybody who did a little math, even when you have a great season, is 100 grand, right?
Yeah.
And you're travel and everything else. That's not cutting it. And that's if you did epically well.
Yeah.
So, but fast forward 3 or 4 years, and maybe everybody in the top 10 makes 100 grand in a season, and it
Sure.
may, and maybe to some extent your sponsorship is just money in the bank
Yeah, that's the
because
hope, right?
you're living off of your winnings,
Well, yeah, I mean,
or
like,
vice versa.
take a guess at AB's career earnings.
Oh, probably not that high because he's just not. He
He
just
hasn't. He had. I mean, yeah, he doesn't have like a crazy cash streak. He misses cash. But
I don't know, 100 and a quarter.
Yeah, that's what
a
number
little
I was.
higher, almost 200 grand,
One four,
one ninety
one four,
six.
oh, 200.
Yeah,
196.
yeah,
Okay.
and most of that in the last year, or not most of
Yeah.
it, but like 80 grand in the last year. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
I actually had him as my second pick for this year's OTB because he's done really well there. And then he didn't.
he
Then
did not
he
do well there.
had an uncharacteristically bad tournament. Yep.
He's had some stinkers, for sure.
Well, the funny thing about the OTB is like Ella. Whenever I think of the OTB Open, like potential winner, I'm always
Mm,
putting Ella Hansen in there. And then
yeah.
for whatever reason, these past couple years, she has rounds that are very good. And yes, she
Hmm.
plays like in the top 10, definitely, but she's not usually like even sniffing the win. And then this year, it was so fun to watch her take it down.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't that cool how athletes are somehow inspired or comfort zone or something when they're playing. This is kind of her second home, that she has a very strong sense of community in this area, and how often that happens, that an athlete does really well when they're at home or in a place like that where they feel very, very welcome and comfortable. And so yeah, it was I know there were a lot of people who were extremely happy that she won. Obviously Paige has been our winner in the past, and we love having her win too. She's somebody I admire so much, and so it's been great to see her win. But it was super great to have Ella win as well.
Well, and I've written into Ulti World's The Upshot about Paige in the OTB, and I said that she has a home field advantage there because when you walk around just as a fan, you
Yeah,
see her hanging out with all the OTB boys. She's up in
right.
the grandstands having a
Yeah,
beer, hanging out, and it's like, man, if you can get that relaxed at a sporting event that you are competing at for money and
yeah.
for championships, like it's got to be a lot easier to golf after being that comfortable.
Yeah,
I would imagine for sure. Just it's got to shake out a lot of whatever stress you're carrying when even if you're not just distracting yourself, just
I-
you release that,
in some
right?
sports they
So
talk about, or yeah, like being at home, like because like for football they'll often stay at the hotel even if they're playing home games and stuff like that because it's less distracting. But I think with golf, you want to go do your normal thing and try to rest. I
yeah.
have Leonard. I have a question from the peanut
Yes.
gallery.
Yes, please.
Uh, Dan Slavic asks, any Hall of Fame questions for Leonard? Is he traveling to the USDGC for his ceremony?
Yes.
You are.
Yeah, yeah, that's when the induction will occur. And I have never been. I just have not traveled enough. And even as an Innova ambassador, and that's kind of like an Innova homecoming event where as many Innova people as possible go to that.
Oh yeah.
I had not been yet, so now obviously I'm going.
Are you gonna make a trip of it and
Yeah.
all that stuff? Like go out there for a while?
Yeah, typical of me.
Yeah. It's about to
Typical of
ask. Like yeah, because
Yeah, typical of me and the whole Hall of Fame bio. I have 8 places to be that same weekend. So that's the Little River, which is like such a favorite event of mine.
yeah,
That same weekend. So I won't.
October 12th and 13th,
This
right?
Yeah, the ceremony is on Wednesday, so I can go to the ceremony and come back if I choose to. But if I don't come back for Little River, I'll probably stay a whole week and a half because then DGPT Championships is in North Carolina the following weekend, and if I'm all the way out there, man, I'm not gonna miss that. So,
Oh
so
yeah.
I'm sticking around. And Ross is coming along, and Caleb will be out there, and I mean, I'll know 100 people out there, but those are two of my favorite people to hang out with. So I'm definitely going. It's just a question of when I'm coming back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Is there a chance that Whirlwind is going to be setting up a booth at USDGC?
No, No, yeah, I'm not driving the trailer out. The closest thing to that will be maybe I'll sit with Caleb in his Peered booth. That
Yeah.
would be fun. Yeah, or
Yeah.
honestly, if I'm out there, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might help out with other things. I could,
Yeah.
put on my Innova hat and do Innova stuff. Whatever. It'll all be great. Watching
Yeah.
golf or being behind the scenes, hanging with people I haven't seen for a while, or actually trying to support the event by being a volunteer in some way. All of it would be really fun.
Yeah, last year I went to Worlds in Vermont and ran into the Shawns who were doing crowd control for the lead
Nice.
card. And I was like, man, not only do these guys run an epic tournament in the Bay, but they're also the best crowd control guys in the biz,
Surprise.
and they do it at the biggest stage.
Yeah. Well, that was for a million reasons they would be involved anyway. But yeah,
Sure.
dress rehearsal. Let's just call it that. Yeah,
Sure.
they were assistant TDs technically for that, right?
I think so. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
And so again, Champions Cup, not a
That was the
surprise.
Maple Hill one, right? No, no.
Yeah,
Smugs.
Yes,
yeah,
Smugs.
Smugs.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think they were like. Yeah. They were definitely involved.
But yeah, not sorry. Last thing, yeah, absolutely not a surprise that they were going to be given a chance of running some sort of major at some point.
hmm
With the momentum of what OTB is and where they are in the community and just the like history of the disc golf pro tour.
Yeah.
I think that like the rest of the world was kind of like, oh my god, the OTB Open, and it's like, nah, y'all don't. You just really don't know. If you know, you know. It's one of those
Yeah,
type
Well,
of
the
for
things
sure.
the
about
thing that
those
makes
two.
me feel a little better is that given the schedule this year, I was really
Mhm.
worried that they were kind of right off the West Coast more and more. So it's nice that there's a major out here. It's going to draw more of the field out here, and
Yeah.
hopefully they align, the schedule in a reasonable way around it. I'm sure they already have got that figured out, but
Yeah, I mean, I do know that that was some of the weight on the scale for the championships cup Champions Cup coming
Hmm.
to Stockton was the fact that we haven't had any majors out here for a long time. So I think 1,000 Rated Productions on their own accord would have been able to get it because they can run a good show, and if you need somebody to jump in and run a great show on short notice, who
yeah,
better? Um, but also I think there was awareness that West Coast hadn't had a major in a while,
was the
and
last.
this was an opportunity.
I mean, yeah, there was Worlds,
2013 Worlds.
there's Worlds, and then Santa Cruz Worlds before that, right?
Yeah, 2011,
hmm
I think. Yeah.
Well, Leonard, looks like you got another busy summer, buddy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
I do. I do. I'm. I don't know how not to go hard.
It's Hey, man.
It's hard for me to turn it
Well,
off.
we're here to
But
try to back you up as much as we can, but we can
this
barely keep up, man. You
the
know.
sport the
Yeah.
sport is just is always got something exciting to work on, and that's for those of you who know my long history, and I'll just give you the quick is like I had 10 very intense years when I first found the sport, and I competed as a frisbee player and ran tournaments, and then that became disc golf centric with the NorCal series. Then I was kind of sidelines for like a big chunk of time, 15 years, where I'm playing a little bit. I did manage to design Golden Gate Park in that window, but honestly, I wasn't doing a lot of stuff. And then 10 years ago, I came back, really intensely again. And part of the reason why I came back is just like there's so much stuff to do. This is not a sport that's evolved into a bunch of specialists and hyper corporate and all this kind of stuff, and just pick some little thing to be a cog in the a wheel in the whole mechanism of things. It's like, nah, there's innovative stuff, creative stuff. You can go find stuff you want to do, and that and I dig that. And so if it's design or retail or being on WIFDIF committee or whatever it might be, I mean, there's no better example of that than Caleb, who's just insane. If I wasn't, if my brand wasn't Whirlwind, he should have that name because it's like in no time flat, he's like plugged in here, plugged in there, doing quality work and having huge impact in a million different ways. It's just because, and he should, his experience and his ability to get engaged and have massive impact so quickly just tells you again how young we are.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you would take a lot longer to find traction and to find a place that you could be involved in that way.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I'm not at the scale that you guys are at, but I mean, like I was out of the sport
yeah,
3 years ago, 4 years ago. I thought I was never going
yeah,
to play disc golf again, except for maybe once a year with buddies. But like, I went from 0 to 62, but I mean, I can't keep up with you guys or Caleb, because it's it's too much. But we're trying to do what we can here locally and keep it moving too. But
yeah.
well, Leonard, we'll wish you a good night. I think we've been going for a long time here, so
Thank you for
Thank you
letting
so
me
much.
suck up so much of your time.
yeah. Well, no,
Appreciate
hey,
it,
we
guys.
literally had no agenda. Like
Yeah.
we decided last week we're like we should do one, and then we didn't really come up with any ideas. And then I thought about you, and then he texted me saying, "Let's bring Leonard on." And I was like, if he wants to do it, let's do it. So we could just kill an hour with you every couple weeks, and then there's our podcast.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
I appreciate
And
it, guys.
to remind everyone, the first Pearl/Bad Guys podcast was just to interview Leonard about Oyster Bay.
And I wasn't
That's the
involved
only
at all
reason.
at that point. Yeah. Exactly.
Nice.
Well, yeah. So everybody, come on out on Saturday. I'll see a bunch of you guys out there. Jeff, are you going out there and playing?
Yeah, actually, my day opened up, so now I get to
we
go
have
and play.
about 80. We have about 115 slots total, and I think we have about 80 people signed up. So
Oh,
it's
that's
looking,
good.
yeah, it's good
Good
numbers,
spot.
and so we'll have close to a full house, but there's still definitely some available space.
Okay.
Great.
Well, hopefully we'll see you before another month and a half or 2 months.
Yeah.
Me and Jeff will do that.
Yep.
Okay. Anything
All right,
else
guys.
from you, Jeffy?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Have a great night, everybody.
Cool. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.